Hello, Mountaineer faithful. As you may have heard, Randy Moss has taken a leave of absence from ESPN to handle his personal health issues. We pray for Randy and his mom, Maxine, for healing, endurance, and strength in their time of need. And yes, it's personal to me because all of us come from Rand, West Virginia, and we attended the same high school at DuPont High School. And yes, I went to school with his mom. So you would like to see people from your hometown do well. And Randy has done that, but he has a different battle now. So we have to support him, and I encourage everyone that's lived in the 304 or associated with the 304, dial up those prayers in support of Randy and Maxine. I'm sure they would appreciate it. And also, Randy stated, even though he's going through, he would like all of us to get our checkups and be on top of your health. And he basically was happy about his medical staff and team that's working with him. And now looking at Ren Baker's interview on selecting a Mountaineer coach, I'm going to give you my take and break down Ren Baker 101 plan and process. It was all on display. He controlled the interview from start to finish. He started off by thanking Coach Neil Brown for all that he contributed to the West Virginia University football programs. It might not have translated into an overall winning record in the Big 12, but he did strive in developing leadership programs for his players. And he had a disciplined team off the field. You didn't hear much on that. So Ren started out by using emotional intelligence by letting everyone in Mountaineer Nation know that he still supports Neil Brown, and it was just a personal decision, and that he still believes in Neil Brown, but it just did not work out. But he has empathy for Neil Brown and his family. And then he went on to lay out the structure, the organizational structure. And then he told you how he was going to operate within the structure. So let's go through it. Here's my take, just like breaking down film. All right, we're breaking down Ren Baker 101 plan and process. The first thing he did was hire Parker Executive Search. I know you heard that name, but did you Google it and look it up? Parker Search specializes in leadership professionals that want to coach Power 4 football teams. What do? Well, they're going to be collecting data and statistics on all of the potential head coaching candidates. And guess what? Where are they going to get that from? Well, they get the short list from Ren Baker. And he's the only one that knows who's on that short list and who he wants to talk to. That's the job of an AD. So one, he hired Parker Associates to do background checks on all the potential candidates. And then he stated very clearly, he gave them a short list. And as much as the social media pundits and all those in the audience that was listening to his press conference, they don't know no more than you and I do about his short list, because he made it up and he didn't reveal who is on the short list. And that's the way it is. And they ask him other questions with regard of whether someone needs head coaching experience or about OCs and DCs. But pretty much all of it is in the mix because he's already got his short list. That's what Ren Baker is about, plan and process at this point. And I might not agree with who's on his short list, But it doesn't matter because he has a short list. And so we'll have to wait and see who's on that short list. And from there, after the background checks and he basically gets all of the analytical data that he's going to need to start processing and thinking about who is best qualified for West Virginia University's head coaching job. He goes through all of that with his staff of people, and they start to eliminate those that don't belong or those that may not fit what West Virginia University is looking for in a head coach. Because once you get to the interview process, and if you want to become a head coach at West Virginia University, I can tell you right now, you better have a process and a plan. And your process and a plan has got to include high school recruiting, recruiting territories, the private NEO collective, the transfer portal, how you're going to basically staff the football team. Do you have any names in mind who's going to be your defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator? How does that work? Who are you going to retain? That's just some of the questions. Are you going to keep the holdovers that's been there at West Virginia forever? People like Dan Nealon, who's the equipment manager. He's been there for over 20 years. Mike Joseph has been there for a long time. Rashid Marshall is a newcomer within the West Virginia organization. And what about all of the analysts that were hired to work on evaluating talent? What is your plan for evaluating talent? So the potential candidates, it's going to be a pretty tough sledding if you don't have a plan and a process for those areas. It's not like in the olden days where you're just getting on the field and you're presenting what your offensive and defensive philosophy is. College football has gotten more difficult to navigate from a managerial standpoint. So that's what's going to happen with Ren Baker Plan and Process 101. Somebody's going to get chosen, and like I said, I might not agree with anybody that he has on the list because I'm always concerned about who didn't have access to interview for the coaching job, who was left out, who didn't get the opportunity that was qualified to come in and compete for the head coaching job. So everybody's going to have concerns no matter who he ends up picking. But it's one thing to know he has a plan and a process for success that each candidate has to go through. And that's what it's all about at the Power 4 level, is doing your due diligence and working through the process to name West Virginia's next head football coach. So he dropped all of that on the media types in the press conference because they basically only showed up because they're interested in who's on that short list. They think they know, but they don't know. Did they know he was going to hire Kellogg from Stephen F. Austin to be the women's basketball coach? Did they know when it came out of the blue that he was going to hire Darian DeVries as men's basketball coach coming from out in Iowa? Kellogg came from Texas, so he really hasn't been that much of an insider as far as pulling out names from West Virginia, the household names. So he really hadn't been leaning that way on his last couple of big-time hires. So I don't know if you can chart what path he's taken, but he's given you a structure of how he's going to operate. But you just don't know where he's operating. But he's analytically and data-based person, and he's results-driven person, it appears to me. And he had 2 solid hires that he's already made at West Virginia University. But none of them, to my knowledge, has West Virginia University ties or West Virginia ties. So this next decision is going to be very interesting on who it's going to be. If you've got any idea, please let me know from hearing the press conference on which way he's leaning. But one thing he did do, he did tell you about his plan and his process. And he kept dropping dimes, wisdom, and knowledge as to how he operates. And you got to respect him for that. And we're all not going to agree on he chooses as the next head coach. But I'm hoping that he does what a long line of great ADs have done at West Virginia, especially Eddie Passalong and Fred Schaus and Dick Martin. Those guys knew how to hire good people to run programs. And their records speak for themselves. And hopefully, Ren Baker is following down that path. Because the last 12 years, it's just been poor leadership. So hopefully we're at least getting some leadership on who's going to be the next coach of West Virginia University. That's the way it works, and that's Ren Baker 101 in plan and process. Mountaineer strong, mountaineer forever. Mountaineer yesterday, mountaineer today. C. Ivan Franklin. One minority voice, one view at Be Frank for Real. See ya. Go Mountaineers.